What is up, studs, and welcome to Ask MandR, episode 347. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the real LEGO Star Wars May 4th promo for 2025. If less detailed minifigs actually are better, we have a leaked piece count for the $1,000 Death Star, and much more. But before that, if you don't follow me on Instagram, for the first time in my life over the weekend, I met a LEGO Star Wars designer at Brick Convention Orlando. That's Nate Clark. He designed, I think, 5 different LEGO Star Wars sets, along with some LEGO City sets, but it was a pretty cool thing, and I just felt like that is something worth sharing. A real momentous occasion after 16 years of making LEGO videos on YouTube. It finally happened. Finally! And one more thing. Today's the 5-year anniversary of the 501st Battle Pack. I know, it's hard to believe.
A great success!
I never thought I would be this excited. So last year I partnered up with Brickshell to release a banger high quality 25th anniversary case, and since then I've gotten tons of requests to do a 501st Battle Pack case, and so today we have released the 501st Battle Pack case. So unlike our 25th anniversary case, it is a limited edition item and it won't be here forever, so if you do want to buy it and you're in the US or North America, you can get it from MandRshop.com and BrickshellCases.com, and for those in Europe, to reduce your shipping costs, we've partnered up with JB Spielwarren, so they will be carrying the cases for European buyers. I'll have all the appropriate links in the description below. I'm really proud of the case. I think it looks amazing. Yours will come numbered randomly. The only number that won't be available is number 34 because I'm keeping that one, but number 1 and number 501 and all the other great numbers that you might want are going to be out there and available. I also think it turned out way better than I thought it would when we first set out designing it, especially because the owner of Brickshell had the idea to put the jetpack trooper on a little stand that's cut into the side of the case, and I think that just looks fantastic for display. So if you want to celebrate 5 years, if you love the set, if you're a part of the movement and want to have a nice display for your 501st Battle Pack, we've got the links in the description below. And let's get to our first viewer question from Brant Stewart. He says, have you heard that this year's GWP is no longer supposed to be the Republic Escape Pod? Apparently it's now supposed to be a Kaminoan Enforcer ship with 3 clone troopers. What are your opinions on this GWP, and how do you think the clone troopers will be with LEGO's current quality of Star Wars minifigs? So I think it is still supposed to be like clone cadets, the ones that we see on Kamino, but so yeah, we'll leave that there. I'm pretty sure it's going to be clone cadets. Now, as far as the actual build, yeah, it won't apparently be an escape pod, which is what we talked about last week, and it was kind of why I was surprised that the rumor of an escape pod had come out, because I was under the impression it was not an escape pod. And so the Kaminoan Enforcer ship, I think you can see kind of briefly in the background in Attack of the Clones. It's something that if you just showed me, I previously probably couldn't have told you what exactly it was from. So as far as a super niche thing that LEGO would have never made as a May 4th promo, I think this definitely fits the bill. From some more Googling, I believe it's officially called a KE-8 Enforcer, and it kind of has a Slave 1-esque look, which might really be why they chose it. I think that makes a little bit more sense. And just from looking at some of the images, I'm kind of interested to see how they're going to do that long piece that comes out of the bottom. I wonder if that'll just basically be part of a stand for the set, or if it'll have some sort of stand attachment at the bottom, because there's no way you can balance it like that unless they want you to sit it flat, which would be kind of lame. So I'm curious to see how that turns out, but it seems like a pretty reasonable thing for them to make, all things considered, for this year's May 4th promo. So I think I have pretty high hopes for this one. Matthew says, is the May 4th promo available like regular sets, or is there a special way to get it? It's quite simple. You just have to buy from lego.com or LEGO stores during the promotional period, which will probably start on May 1st and end somewhere around May 5th or May 6th. For a set like what's rumored, you're probably going to have to spend about $160 to get that as a free gift with purchase. Now, I know a lot of people are going to have a ton of May 4th questions coming up. I ask you to put any May 4th questions you may have with that pinned comment, because I'm going to do another like May 4th recap video before May 4th happens, so that everyone knows everything they need to know to get the promo, what the best sales are. So yeah, look for that video about a week out from May 4th, but please, if you have a question that's been on your mind, as dumb as it may seem to you, there's no dumb questions here, we will get it answered. I like this next one from Maltev. He says, this might be a hot take, but I honestly prefer minifigs with less detail sometimes too much details make the fig look weird and messy to me. So I find myself to actually be in your corner. It just kind of depends on what it is. But yeah, overly detailed isn't necessarily automatically good, because a LEGO minifigure is kind of a caricature of the actual character from the show, so it's not supposed to be one-to-one, but there is a difference between like you know, overly detailed, maybe too many lines on the face versus like just having the wrong face. Or the young Boba coming up is a good example. Like having the correct hairpiece doesn't mean it's overly detailed and bad, right? It's just simply having the correct hairpiece or having the correct colored arms or having the correct colored belt. There's a difference between stuff like that I have issues with versus an over detail and way too many lines on a face type of thing. So yeah, I think there's obviously a lot of minutia to it and you can go back and forth all day, but you don't make a bad point, and so much so that LEGO has changed a lot of the ways they do things over the last 10 years to kind of make sure they don't go too far on minifig detail. But don't get me wrong, the details they do have should still be accurate. Justin says, as the age of downsized sets has come to us in the past few years, what are your choices for the 3 worst downsized sets? Appreciate the kind words at the end. I think the choices for me are pretty simple here. You've got the 2020 AAT, you got the 2021 TIE Fighter, and the 2025 ARC 170. I think those 3 are probably their worst downsized sets, but also in doing research for this, it kind of occurred to me that yeah, downsizing is a bit of a problem, but it might be kind of an overblown problem. Like when a bad downsized set comes along, it is noticeable and you are not going to forget it, right? That ARC 170, that AAT, that TIE Fighter, like those are pretty bad downsizes compared to their previous models. But, you know, there weren't that many other contenders for worst downsizes. Like, the Coruscant Guard gunship, yes, it's a downsize, and it's not great that it's downsized, but it's not a terrible bad downsize that's going to make the top 3 bad downsizes. But I don't know, that was just kind of an epiphany I had while looking through the last 5 years of sets, frankly. So Velociraptor here says, what do you think of the 9,019 pieces that the UCS Death Star is rumored to have? I would have thought it would be 10,000 plus, but not complaining. Still should be amazing. Definitely did not expect 10,000 pieces out of this Death Star. I think 9,019 here is more than I expected. I was probably thinking like 7,500 to 8,500, because if you look at Jabba's sail barge, it was 3,900 and change for a $500 set. So if you just simply double that, you're looking at 8,000 pieces for $1,000. So obviously it's apples to oranges when you go from one LEGO set to another based on the color of the pieces, the types of pieces, how big they are. Obviously Jabba the Hutt is in that set and he's probably expensive for them to make. So there ends up being a lot of little things that would change the cost of a LEGO set from one to another. But 9,000 pieces is certainly promising. I think that gives people a lot of hope. The other rumor with this one is currently 38 minifigs. I know 40 plus had been floating around, but 38 minifigs is still pretty close to 40 plus, and maybe 40 plus includes like little droid things too. I don't know, but 38 is a good number, certainly. Everything, in my opinion, is pointing towards a big panel Death Star with a full-on interior. I still need to do the video where I discuss everyone else's like random ideas for what this Death Star might be, but the piece count and the price point, you know, I got to think about it more, but it certainly is starting to feel like it could be an absolutely killer Death Star set, and I certainly hope so, because you can't put $1,000 set out and have it be bad. So the hype for this Death Star, I think, is continuing to rise as little different pieces of info trickle out. There was another question I didn't pick. Someone was like, would this be an episode 4 or an episode 6 Death Star? And I've discussed this before, but this UCS Death Star will very much be a mixture of Death Stars, much like they did with the last 2 playset Death Stars, where you've got scenes from different movies included within the same Death Star. So I wouldn't expect it to be specifically based on one thing. It will be a combination of a lot of different scenes from different movies and things. How to Hockey says, any ideas on when you will be able to pre-order the Slave 1? And usually you are not able to pre-order UCS sets like that, so I would not expect that to happen. Just doesn't usually happen like that. Jamie, I like his question or comment more so. He says, quote, we all know what happened last time. No, we don't. Some people don't follow every news item. I was being a little facetious when I said we all know what happened last time. I was just trying to, you know, quickly move the video along. I'll try to keep this short but informative. Last week I mentioned that the actor Daniel Logan, who played Young Boba Fett in Attack of the Clones, reposted the leaked image of Young Boba Fett that said that the figure looked nothing like him, and basically that the figure is bad, right? And it's just not often that you see an actor talking about their minifig, or especially saying their minifig is bad or perhaps missing, which is what has happened back in 2017 when the actor of Finch Dallow, Kevin Lane was his name, and essentially he complained that his character wasn't represented in the LEGO set, even though he was the one in the movie, in the scene that the LEGO set was based on. And so then LEGO went and literally changed the minifigure completely out of the set. They took out the old one, put in Finch Dallow. I think they just kept the suit the same, but head and helmet brand new for Finch Dallow specifically. And then they put out this big press release about how great they are. And they even bring out Old Faithful. They say it's got to be true to our motto, only the best is good enough, which we know they do not actually apply to very much at all. So yeah, in that case, LEGO clearly did a good and frankly the right thing, putting the correct, proper, accurate character in there. But since then, all the other like things that we have seen issues with, they don't even so much as address or comment on, let alone go and fix, right? So maybe that's what it takes. Hopefully Daniel Logan reposting how garbage his minifig is enough to get LEGO to realize that they made a garbage minifig. You know, like, I don't know why you can't just look at a picture of it side by side with the character in the show or in the movie and know that it's garbage, but it is what it is. As a funny side note, if you weren't aware, it is one of the rarest and most expensive LEGO Star Wars minifigs of all time, and someone commented kind of recently asking, do you walk around telling people you're one of the rarest LEGO minifigs ever? And he said, no, but it's nice to know. So, he's well aware that Finch Dallow is indeed a LEGO Star Wars legend, which is really cool. But, yeah, it just is an interesting juxtaposition on how LEGO treated that one specific situation versus everything else since then, right? And so, maybe with that piece of knowledge, some of you guys out there may be able to understand why I feel the way that I do. Kristen says, if the price of LEGO Battle Packs go up anymore, will you consider forming a protest and not buying their overpriced sets? I feel like I have already protested against buying a lot of Battle Packs. I don't buy a lot of Battle Packs anymore. It's over, guys. Golden Army building is done for me. Like, I just stopped buying them. Like, I buy the one to review, and that's it. And it's sad, right? It's partially a price thing, but also just a quality thing. Frankly, I would be okay with the prices staying the same if they just brought the quality up to what it should be with printed pieces and nicer minifigs and, you know, simple stuff like that. I don't think people are going to be lining up to buy that 327th battle pack unless the clones are like really, really good, which we all know they won't be. Bill Wilson says, with the release of the new ARC 170 and upcoming V19 Torrent, do you think LEGO will finally release a new Vulture droid or Tri-Fighter? We haven't had a proper droid fighter in years. And I think this would be the perfect type of set for LEGO to release for like $20. A smaller droid fighter with a couple of battle droids and maybe a minifig for $20 would absolutely kill it. Like something like the 1999 set, but better, but not quite as big and crazy as the 2014 set, which was already $25. So that'd be like $35 in today's money. Let's do something smaller for $20, right? Like, I think that would make a ton of sense. And LEGO hasn't been doing sets like that in a long time. Now, as to whether or not I actually think they'll do it, I don't. I think that if that sort of thing was going to release, it would be far more likely that it would be releasing this year side by side with the ARC 170 with that V19 Torrent. Obviously not impossible that it could come out in 2026, 2027, whatever, forever down the line. But if it were to be planned to be like a combination with those things and to go against those things, I just feel like it should be releasing now instead of next year, the year after. Darth Jar Jar says, why aren't we getting a Jango Fett Slave 1 polybag to go with the UCS set? Last year we had the TIE Interceptor, and don't forget the year before, the X-Wing to go with their respective UCS sets in those years, and I think this set should have gotten the same love. Now, it is worth noting that the year before that, 2022, the UCS Luke's Landspeeder didn't get a polybag version of a Luke's Landspeeder, and the R2-D2 didn't get a polybag version of the R2-D2, but they were making polybags just relevant to other sets released in the year, and this year that trend seems to have been completely severed. Last year the AAT kind of severed that, but we also had the TIE Interceptor, so it was kind of both at once, and now it's no longer relevant, it seems. I will say it does not surprise me that they're not going to make a Jango Fett Slave 1 polybag. I don't see it as something that they need to make. It certainly would have been nice, but I'm not going to hang my hat on that one in particular. Paul Hawkins says, we know they didn't just create a Plo Koon head mold for a microfighter, so the question is, where else could or will he appear? And I think the obvious answer is a Plo Koon's Jedi Starfighter, but they have to retire like the Ahsokas, the Jedi Bob, and the Obi-Wan one first. Like, there's too many of them available at once, so having another one would just be too much. I bet that is the reason that we don't have a full-size Plo Koon Starfighter this year. I would probably bet a good amount of money that the original plan was to release a full-size Plo Koon Starfighter this year that would have tied in with the ARC 170, because that just makes sense. I don't know how you wouldn't do that. And then they had this idea to do the UCS Jango Fett Slave 1 and the playset Jango Fett Slave 1, and so they extended the retirement date for the regular playset Obi-Wan's Starfighter, and then maybe Jedi Bob Starfighter was like a late edition, I'm not sure. Like, but too many things happened at once, and it was like, well, we can't have another Jedi Starfighter, so whoever's like making that like top decision of what sets to release when and not compete with too many of each other decided that, and obviously the Ahsoka one came out, so yeah, you just ended up with a lot of stuff going on at once, and I'm sure the microfighter is like the medium for them to like say, well, we still released one this year for Revenge of the Sith, but it's like, oh, come on, this is not as cool as a full-size one would have been to go with the ARC 170. The other other great option that I really hope they consider is what part of the rumor was for the May 4th promo, would be an escape pod from the Clone Wars. I think it was the first season where Plo Koon and the Wolf Pack are out in space, maybe fighting regular battle droids or commando battle droids, but like either way, it was really, really cool. But I think most reasonably, it'll just end up being Plo Koon Starfighter. But also, like, it's not impossible that they created this head mold and they will only ever use it in this set. They have made a unique helmet mold that was only ever in a microfighter before, back in 2017 or 18 with the Ewing pilot, as I've discussed before. So it's not impossible that it would be a unique use here, but it is, I would agree, unlikely. Meta Hydra says, have you noticed all the store displays that have the Sith Infiltrator set have the rare version of Qui-Gon? I thought it was funny how the rare thing I was looking for is literally in a case right in front of me. And this makes sense because all of the display cases would have been made before the set came out with the early production versions of the set, and so yeah, they're gonna have that reddish brown version of Qui-Gon. Now, he is probably glued up in there and you're never gonna be able to get him out. Maybe some people will still value that as the variant and want to have that one, but it is glued together, and like, I don't know, is it probably going to break the legs getting them off or something. But if it doesn't, I guess maybe that could potentially be a cheaper way for you to obtain the variant. It just kind of depends. I don't know how many people are out there selling Qui-Gons that got ripped out of a store display, but maybe that's something that's going to start happening now that I mentioned it. If you guys did enjoy, please hit that like button. If you have a question or topic for next week's episode, let me know in the comments section below. And if you guys want to get your 1 of 501 501st case for the 5-year anniversary of the set, get it with the link in the description below from MandR Shop or Brick Show. And of course, if you're in Europe or overseas, grab it from JB Spielwarn, so you don't have to pay some enormous shipping amount. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you again next week or on another video. Later.